You know, there's something quite peculiar that happens to many people on the path of spiritual awakening, and it's something that's rarely talked about openly. They begin to experience what looks from the outside very much like depression. They lose interest in things that once excited them. They feel disconnected from people around them. They experience a kind of flatness, a lack of motivation, a sense that nothing really matters anymore. And naturally they worry. They think, have I made a terrible mistake? Has my spiritual practice broken something in me? Am I going backwards rather than forwards? But I want to suggest to you that what's being called depression in this case is often something entirely different. It's not a psychological illness. It's not a chemical imbalance. It's a natural and necessary stage of awakening that's being misinterpreted, both by the person experiencing it and by the society around them that has no framework for understanding what's actually happening. Let me explain what I mean. When you begin to wake up, when you start to see through the illusions that most people live by, something very specific happens. The things that used to give your life meaning, the things that used to motivate you, the things that used to seem important, they begin to lose their power over you. And from the inside, this can feel exactly like depression. Nothing seems to matter. Nothing excites you. You can't find the energy to pursue goals that once seemed crucial. But here's what's actually happening. You're not becoming depressed. You're becoming disenchanted in the literal sense of that word. The enchantment, the spell, the collective trance that keeps most people motivated and engaged with the world, it's breaking. And yes, when a spell breaks, there's a period of disorientation, a sense of loss, a feeling of emptiness where the illusion used to be. Think about it this way. Imagine you've been watching a film, and you've been completely absorbed in it, identified with the characters, caught up in the drama, emotionally invested in the outcome. And then suddenly, someone pauses the film and turns on the lights, and you realize you're sitting in a theater. The story that seemed so real, so important, so urgent just moments ago, suddenly reveals itself to be a projection on a screen. In that moment of recognition, do you immediately go back to being absorbed in the film? No. There's a period where you can't quite get back into it. You've seen that it's just a film, just light and shadow, just a story. And the concerns that seemed so pressing while you were absorbed, they no longer have the same grip on you. This is what's happening in spiritual awakening. You've seen that the story you've been living, the drama you've been caught up in, the goals you've been pursuing, they're part of a collective fiction, a shared dream that humanity has agreed to take seriously. And once you've seen this, you can't unsee it. The motivation that comes from being completely identified with the story, that powerful drive that keeps most people engaged with life, it begins to fall away. And this looks like depression. You're not excited about your career anymore because you've seen that the whole career game is just that, a game with arbitrary rules and imaginary prizes. You're not excited about accumulating possessions because you've recognized that things can never actually fulfill you. You're not excited about impressing people because you've understood that the self you were trying to impress them with is itself a construction, a performance, not something real. So yes, from the outside, from the perspective of a society that measures well-being by how enthusiastically you participate in its games, you look depressed, you've lost your motivation. You're not pursuing success with the same vigor. You're not as concerned with what people think of you. You're not as driven by the usual desires and fears. And in a culture that equates aliveness with constant doing, constant striving, constant engagement with the material and social world, this withdrawal, this lack of enthusiasm, it's interpreted as illness. But here's what they're missing. This phase, this period of what looks like depression, it's actually a kind of death. Not physical death, but ego death. The constructed self, the false personality that you've been maintaining, that you've been defending, that you've been trying to improve and perfect and make successful, it's dying. And death, even the death of something that was never real to begin with, involves grief. It involves a sense of loss. It involves a kind of darkness. You see, the ego doesn't want to die. It will fight for its survival. And one of the ways it fights is by interpreting this process as depression, as illness, as something wrong that needs to be fixed. Because if it can convince you that you're sick, that you need to get back to normal, then you'll stop the process of awakening. You'll reinvest in the illusion. You'll put the spell